Hey, it's Jack. Let's talk about how to go no contact. No contact is a really powerful thing you can do when you do it from a place of authenticity, not to try and manipulate someone into an outcome, but just because actually no contact really serves you. It's like a true path for you. And just as a quick caveat up front, because I've been with this territory, in this territory with a lot of women, going no contact really does mean going no contact. And that means you're not available to take a phone call, you're not available to respond to a text, you're not available to like or comment on someone's social media. You're actually creating a vacuum for yourself and inoculating yourself from contact. So I just put that out there because I have a lot of people that when they start talking about it, they're like, well, what do I do? He keeps reaching out to me. And at some level, that should actually be irrelevant, even though I know it can be difficult. And it might mean that you actually need to temporarily place a block on someone's number or WhatsApp just to honor the boundary that you actually need. There are three things that you need to consider really when you go no contact. The first is what period of time, right? And I'm imagining for a lot of people, we're talking 30, 60, or 90 days. You can also do a sort of rolling no contact, right? Which might mean that you say, hey, I'm going to do this for 30 days. And as you get to the end of that 30 days, you really check in with yourself and notice what do you actually need. You know, for a lot of us, we sometimes underestimate what time we need to really process something and grieve and possibly move on. You know, so don't be afraid of extending that period if that's what's really needed. The second thing you need to make a decision on is to whether you actually communicate what you're doing. I'm generally a fan of people being open and transparent where they can in their communication. Making an authentic communication like, hey, this dynamic that we're in isn't actually working for me, or I want to be in a more full-blooded relationship than is available here at this time. So I'm actually going to take a period of time where I'm stepping back from this and I don't want to be in contact with you. That way they kind of know what's going on, and you can request that they don't contact you, which they may or may not honor. They don't have to honor that, but that sort of helps set the thing up. Sometimes you don't really need to make that communication because, you know, perhaps we've been connected and now it's petered out, so why do I need to tell them? But just make sure what you're not doing is keeping a little back door open, because I've seen that sometimes when we don't actually make the declaration through our voice into someone else's reality about what we're actually doing and what we're about and where our boundary is, sometimes that makes it harder if they come back into contact because you haven't had this already articulated boundary with them. And then the third thing you might want to decide is whether you're going to be available for impact, right? Which would mean, are you going to be available for the impact of your going no contact with someone? Like, are you willing to hear their experience, you know, or maybe hear their frustration or anger, or maybe their supplication to be back in contact with you? Are you going to be available for any of that? And if you are, I think you need to do it punctually. I'm talking about, you know, one phone call or one quick in-person coffee. This is not about doing that at length. It may be much more appropriate for them to process their experiences and emotions elsewhere with friends, coaches, or therapists. But that's something, if you've really, you know, been connected with someone for a long time, you might just want to offer that opportunity or not. But just getting clear on those three things: length of no contact, whether you're revealing that you're going no contact, and is there a request to them for no contact, and are you going to be available for any of the impact of that, can actually set you up to have a more successful experience of going no contact. And most of the time when we go no contact, it's in service of one of two things, right? It's either in service of getting clarity, right? So the space might create clarity, either that perhaps we've been connecting in a way that isn't really working for you, but if he were to come back with a genuine shift and take the relationship more seriously, there might be something that you would be open to. Although in that instance, do be aware that when people miss you or miss the connection, which will normally be some part of someone's experience, missing you is very different than I'm available for a different relationship with you, right? So you need to really hear something from him over time that's demonstrated through action that there actually is something different, that there's something has shifted about how I'm orienting to the relationship, not just I miss you and then we connect once or twice and then we move back to the same old. Or the second reason you go no contact is because actually you're clear, you know, this isn't serving you. This is a dynamic that isn't serving you. Often the dynamic is you want a real relationship and he's not available for that, or you want more consistency in a relationship and he's not available for that. Perhaps he's hot or cold, perhaps he's not in a stage of development or his life where it makes sense for him to want to be in a committed relationship. And this is actually you taking your stand for something else. So you're actually exiting the relationship, and you want a minimum period of time in order to be with yourself, your experience, to process, heal, grieve, and move on. And that's actually what's going on. And he doesn't have to actually understand that. It's awesome when people do, but he doesn't have to understand that. It's actually about you having your own back, and then perhaps having some substitute behaviors when you would imagine reaching out to him or kind of feeling weak that you can't hold no contact. Think about that in advance. Have something lined up, whether that's professionally with a coach or therapist, or that's with a bestie that can kind of hold you and be with your experience, so that when the inevitable moment comes where you miss him and you think, oh, I'm going to reach out, you're already prepared, you're going to do something else. So that's how you go no contact. Let me know if you've got any questions and comments about that. I'm Jack. Thanks for being here.